Right now, a lot is happening in Washington at the same time, and most people don't realize how directly it connects to their everyday finances. From the outside, it can look like routine political noise, but underneath that surface, there are decisions lining up that can quietly affect how much you pay each month, how reliable certain services are, and how much flexibility you actually have in your budget. If it feels like costs keep creeping up without a clear explanation, or like updates keep coming, but nothing feels easy to understand, you're not imagining it. Several deadlines are colliding at once. Healthcare costs, federal funding decisions, and global developments are overlapping in ways that create pressure, especially for people living on fixed incomes or tight monthly plans. Here's what most headlines don't explain clearly. These aren't changes that only matter years down the road. Some of them can start showing up within weeks. And when your budget doesn't have much room for surprises, timing matters just as much as the decision itself. Let me ask you something honestly. When you hear news about Congress or Washington, do you usually feel worried, confused, or so overwhelmed that you tune it out completely? A lot of people do. It's a natural reaction. But even when we tune it out, the decisions still show up in our bills, our premiums, and our monthly expenses. So let's slow this down and talk through what's actually happening without the noise or the hype. Congress is back in session for 2026, and they didn't come back to a clean slate. They came back to unfinished business, stacked deadlines, and political pressure all happening at the same time. One of the most immediate deadlines is the federal government funding deadline at the end of January. If lawmakers don't act, parts of the government could shut down. A lot of people hear government shutdown and think nothing really changes because we've been through it before, but that's only partly true. Even the threat of a shutdown creates disruption. Federal workers can face delayed pay, processing times slow, services get backed up, and for people who depend on government systems, even short delays can turn into real problems. What makes this moment different is what's happening alongside that funding fight. At the end of last year, enhanced healthcare subsidies expired. These were the subsidies that helped millions of Americans afford health insurance through the Affordable Care Act marketplace. While they were in place, monthly premiums stayed lower for many households. Once they expired, premiums didn't wait. For a lot of people, they started rising almost immediately. About 22 million Americans benefited from those lower premiums. Now, without congressional action, many are seeing noticeable increases in what they pay each month. For some households, this isn't a small adjustment. It's the difference between keeping coverage and being forced to drop it. This is one of those situations where people assume it doesn't apply to them until it suddenly does. Even if you're on Medicare or have employer coverage, changes like this don't stay contained. When large numbers of people lose coverage or downgrade plans, hospitals feel it, states feel it. Over time, those costs shift back into the system through higher premiums, higher taxes, or reduced services. Inside the House of Representatives, something unusual happened. A small group of Republicans from competitive districts joined Democrats to force a vote on extending those healthcare subsidies for another 3 years. They used a process called a discharge petition, which allows lawmakers to bypass leadership when they feel strong pressure from voters back home. Supporters of the extension argue this isn't about politics, it's about preventing immediate harm. State officials are already warning that thousands of people could lose coverage simply because it becomes unaffordable. And when people lose insurance, they often delay care, which leads to more serious health issues and higher costs later on. But then the issue moves to the Senate, and this is where things slow down. Several Senate Republicans have made it clear they don't support a clean extension. Some want stricter eligibility rules, others want additional conditions added, and some are willing to let the subsidies expire altogether. President Trump has publicly criticized the program, which adds another layer of uncertainty. So even if the House passes something, the Senate could block it, change it, or delay it. And during that delay, people continue paying higher premiums month after month while lawmakers debate. At the same time, Congress is still trying to pass the remaining spending bills needed to fund the government for the year. Only about half of what's needed has been completed so far. Leaders are discussing bundling bills together to avoid a shutdown and keep things moving. Both parties say they want to avoid another shutdown. Everyone remembers how disruptive those are. Workers miss pay, services slow down, confidence drops. And confidence matters more than many people realize. When people feel uncertain, they spend less, invest less, and pull back financially. That uncertainty doesn't stay inside Washington, it spreads outward. There's also an international layer adding to the tension. The administration recently authorized military action in Venezuela without prior approval from Congress. Officials describe it as a law enforcement style operation, not a traditional act of war. Many lawmakers disagree. Why does that matter for your finances? Because military actions come with costs, both immediate and long-term. They affect federal spending priorities, debt levels, and global stability. Markets react to uncertainty. Retirement accounts, pension funds, and even interest rates are influenced by how stable or unstable the world feels. Some senators are now pushing for a vote to limit further military action without congressional approval. That vote may or may not succeed, but the fact that it's happening shows there's tension behind the scenes. And tension in Washington often leads to delays everywhere else. Add in upcoming midterm elections, and the pressure increases. Lawmakers know voters are watching healthcare costs, shutdown risks, and foreign conflicts closely. Sometimes that pressure leads to compromise. Other times, it causes gridlock. While these issues dominate headlines, something else often gets overlooked. When Congress is juggling too many crises at once, smaller but important matters get pushed aside. That can mean delayed benefit adjustments, slower responses to fraud, or postponed reforms that could save money over time. These decisions may feel distant, but their impact shows up very close to home. So what does all of this mean for you over the next few weeks and months? Because while lawmakers debate timelines and procedures, the financial effects don't wait for a final headline. Healthcare is often where changes show up first. If you or someone in your household buys insurance through the marketplace, it's important to review what you're paying now. Many people assume their plan stays the same year to year. But with the enhanced subsidies expired, that assumption can quietly cost hundreds or even thousands over time. Even if Congress eventually acts, the timing matters. Delays mean higher costs in the meantime, and there's no guarantee those extra payments get reversed later. For people on Medicare, the effects may feel indirect, but they're real. When more people lose coverage or downgrade plans, pressure builds throughout the healthcare system. Over time, that affects service availability and costs. Government funding uncertainty works the same way. As deadlines approach, agencies prepare for disruptions. Processing slows, backlogs grow. If you rely on federal services, even small delays can create stress. This is why preparation matters. Sometimes it's as simple as keeping paperwork current, saving copies of important documents, and not waiting until the last minute to handle something time-sensitive. Stepping back, uncertainty is the common thread here. Healthcare costs, funding fights, and global tensions all create it. And uncertainty changes behavior. People spend less. Markets react. Fixed incomes feel tighter when prices move faster than expected. That's why flexibility matters. Not panic, just awareness. Reviewing regular monthly expenses, delaying major commitments when possible, and paying closer attention to notices instead of assuming nothing changes. You don't control what Congress decides, but you do control how prepared you are. Being informed doesn't mean following every detail. It means understanding where the pressure points are and how they connect to your life. These moments in Washington may feel far away, but their effects often land right at your kitchen table. Paying attention now can help you adjust early instead of being caught off guard later.